I don't think it's going to be, but it should be. USAID officials tell staffers, shred and burn your documents. We don't want nobody to see what we've been doing. Get rid of it all. Get rid of it all. Everything must go. And they go into this. They say senior officials at USAID instructed a number of agencies' remaining staff to convene at the agency now former headquarters in D.C. on Tuesday and, quote, an all-day, unquote, group effort to destroy documents stored there, many of which contain sensitive information. The materials earmarked for destruction include contents the agency, quote, classified safes and personnel documents, unquote, at the Ronald Reagan building, and emails sent to USAID acting executive director Erica Carr and obtained by Politico. Right here, quote, shred as many documents first, reserve to burn bags for when the shredder becomes unavailable and needs a break, unquote. Shred so many documents that when the machine breaks down or just needs a rest, stop burning it. Then they continue. They say Carr instructed staff to label the burn bags with the word, quote, secret, unquote, and, quote, USAID BIO agency shorthand for Bureau and Independent Office, unquote, in a dark Sharpie. Okay. Question. Operative question. Why do you need, if this is an aid organization where you are just giving food to kids, why on earth do you need to shred? And then when a shredder breaks down because you've shredded so many documents, to burn the remaining documents? Tell me, Ted, why do you need to do that?
Okay, I'm going to try. Okay, I'm
They're
going to
just
try.
feeding babies. They're just feeding babies.
I'm going to try to speculate why the positive possible spin on this. So maybe what it is that like USAID is doing God's work, and they're worried that all the information will fall into the evil Trumpy hands, and that Elon Musk is going to, I don't know, spam them or something, or do something evil. There's been all this concern about Doge getting, secret information. I'm like, no one's information is secret anymore. But obviously we don't really know what's in there. But the only thing, as far as I've ever been aware that is really truly aid about USAID is the acronym. It stands for Agency for International Development. And what does development mean, right? I mean, development means lots of things. If you work at a college or a museum, it means that you shake down alumni and donors for contributions. That's what development is. And development, when you are a U.S. government agency, basically means economic and cultural hegemony internationally. It's like, this is how the U.S. expresses what they call soft power. And maybe hard power in some cases, but USAID is used to, basically it's a bribe conduit. It's a way to spread money around the world and buy influence and cajole. I mean, USAID was involved in the Maidan, coup, and, just that kind of thing, not exclusively. They've got their like thumbs in every pie, right? Like in the movie. So that's what this is about. There's a lot. I mean, basically, it's like an intelligence agency. It's like a covert operation, but it's like soft, right? It's a smushy one. Like it's kind of like it's in the gray zone. It's in between, what Langley does and like what, say, the Voice of America is right there. You can just turn it on and hear what they're doing and watch what they're doing. This is like in between. Like people don't pay much attention. You could find out everything they were up to if you paid attention, but no one does. So, I mean, there's stuff in there that they just don't want people to know. They don't want the press to find out. They don't want Elon Musk maybe to find out and then like go on Twitter and then, who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, but there's stuff like that.
1,000% agree with you. I think what they don't want is Musk and Trump coming out saying, hey, why are we paying money to undercut Romania's election? Why are we giving money for Georgia in order to overthrow the Georgian government that we don't particularly like because, they got NGO. What piqued my interest on this? When I was covering Georgia and Georgia came out and said, you know what? We need to know who's putting money into our politics. And just like the United States has their FARA law, we're going to get a FARA law. And we're going to use a FARA law just like the U.S. And the U.S. freaked out. And Europe freaked out. And my question was like, okay, why is Europe and the U.S. freaking out? We have the same law that they're talking about adding. And we always make the argument, we want to know who's putting money into our politics, with the exception of Israel, but everybody else we want to know. And we don't want that money to influence our politics in an off way, in direction of another government. Okay, fair enough. I get that. Right. That makes sense. So why are we freaking out about Georgia? You had the French-born, who I call a spy, Georgian president, effectively working on behalf of the European Union, doing any and everything in her power to overthrow the Georgian government. And Georgia, and I'm like, okay, this is weird. Now, the only reason that the US and Europe will be freaking out is because they had money in Georgia. And they had money in Georgia in a way that was trying to dictate political events in the country. And Georgia was like, this is a no. We're not going to be your proxy for another war with Russia. Full stop. The US and Europe said, oh my God, I can't believe the Georgian government is doing that. Putting money into Hungary, putting money into Romania, putting money into pretty much anywhere. Slovakia was another place that money was mostly going. Meaning USAID was being used to either overthrow or export soft power. I would say it's not soft if you're trying to overthrow a government or change the politics in another country. They argue we're just feeding babies. Okay, this is like a $40 billion budget for USAID. $40 billion. Are you really feeding babies?
And we've got a lot of babies. There shouldn't be any hungry babies with that.
No hungry babies. Right.
Every baby should be plump.
Right. Every baby should be fat. If you're spending $40 billion feeding babies. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
No, the image that we have is like from my childhood, like the truck pulls up to the famine zone, and then like, very like Peace Corps volunteers are throwing the bags of rice off the back to the starving masses with the big American flag on it that says gift of the people of the United States of America. And then, at home eating your, in Midwest fly country, you see that on the CBS Evening News and you think, God, we're great. That's the image of what this is. I mean, the reality is not that.
The reality is
there's a little bit of that. It's 1% of it, but it's not very much.
I don't doubt that a percentage of it does that.
Yeah.
And there may be one
very
guy
small,
who comes out
very small
with a bag. Yeah, but it's very small in comparison to what USAID is effectively doing.
There was a book that I never was able to I pitched it to my publisher. I could never get anyone interested. But it was during Bush, when, all his regime change crap. And, I did this. The idea was, it was called Bush's Other Wars. And it was about, and USAID played a role in this, about all these regime changes that Bush carried out, Bush Cheney carried out, that nobody paid attention to, even on the left, because they were, whatever, off the grid. I mean, Bush overthrew the government of Kyrgyzstan. Bush tried to overthrow the government of Belarus. He tried to overthrow the government of Georgia. He did overthrow the government of Haiti. Democratically elected. Same thing with the president. The president of Kyrgyzstan was the only democratically elected non-authoritarian autocrat in Central Asia. Bush overthrew him. It turned Kyrgyzstan into a failed state. I mean, that's the kind of crap they do behind the scenes, and it's very puzzling, because when you study like the internal politics of any of these countries, what you'll typically find is like a regime that's kind of fragile, and then the U.S., there will be all these like rival factions that are trying to take over. And then, inevitably the nastiest fuckers, like usually like religious extremists or far right wing assholes. Yeah, they get a little call from the U.S. government, and it's like it's through like Freedom House, which is a CIA front, but it looks like an NGO, and it's like, we're going to give you money to help you print your posters. We're going to print your flyers for you. Oh, you have an armed wing. Oh, maybe a helicopter is going to drop off some guns for you, and then it's not like we just. I mean, what it is like we put our thumb on the scale. Basically, we're like the DNC supervising a primary, right? We're just like, we're not really like saying, you will do this. It's more like, but we
just appreciate you being in power. That's all.
Yeah, and we're giving you a little help. Yeah, we're giving you, you're going to get things done that you would not otherwise have gotten done. You would not have
John Kiriakou talks about going into a place with bags of money and handing the money out. You need money for this? Here you are. You need dollars for this? Here you are. Yeah. That's USAID.
Oh, yeah. Right? No, that's right. It's bricks of currency. Jamal, I don't know if you remember this, But during the early days of the Iraq occupation, I believe this was like '04.
Mhm.
There was a shipment of U.S. cash of 24 billion with a B dollars in $100 bills. They went in 4 of those giant C-130s, where the nose opens up and they drive in. They filled 4 of those planes with cash, $100 bills on pallets, and sent it to Iraq. $24 billion. Not one penny has ever been accounted for. It's all like poof. No one can even say, "Oh, we gave $1,000 to this warlord or that warlord," and it was all guarded by GIs making like $19,000 a year. So I'm sure some of them have nice houses now, but that's
so frustrating, Ted.
It's unbelievable, right? Meanwhile, literally here in New York City, I have people who literally 2 people have died on my block from starvation and homelessness in the last year. They died outside my building. I mean, so it's like from the elements. I mean, they could have been put up at the Plaza Hotel, for a tiny fraction of that $24 billion. All of them, right? So they could have each had their own personal, their own personal social worker and butler. So it's like,
see, this is the part that confuses me about America. How can American hear that and then be like, we can't afford Medicare for all, or we can't afford to increase Social Security, we can't afford to increase the minimum wage? Like, how do I hear that we spent $300 billion in Ukraine, and yet if somebody says, hey, we need Medicare for all, that's $1 trillion over the course of 10 years, we can't afford it. We spent $300 billion in what, 3 years, give or take? $100 billion a year. That's $1 trillion over the course of 10 years, and the way that we do our budgets. How is that justified?
The counter is that we could do both. Well, that's true. We could. The problem but we don't. Yeah, that's exactly right, Jamal. That's the issue. Is they don't want to. It's that simple. And I don't really care why. They just don't want to. I mean, I can speculate for the reasons, but I kind of don't care. They just should. I don't care why you don't want to take the lady, why you wanted the lady in front of my building to die. I don't know why. But they did. So, okay, well, but you shouldn't have. And it's like, and so it's kind of like, if you're not going to help her, no, don't send $24 billion in cash to you've mentioned this before. They basically they invented money from thin air. The U.S. government can do that. It's a mint. I mean, you could just imagine if you could just magically snap your fingers and conjure up money. That's what they do. It's like, it's the price of the paper and the ink. That's it.
$10 trillion for war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we pulled out. We did not win ultimately. And you think to yourself,
we won.
We won the original war.
We won,
but we got kicked out in 20 years.
We won the war when the checks cleared at the defense contractors. That's the purpose of the war. It's the purpose of the war is not the purpose of the war. We don't care if we occupy or conquer or any of that. None of that's important. The point is to keep pouring money into the hole, and that's the point. It's an addiction. It's like there's a book that came out in the 80s called Addicted to War. I always thought it was like an infantile analogy, but now I look at it and I'm like, I think it's actually quite profound. It's true. It's an addiction. It's it's sick. It's like, you're doing something you just shouldn't do. You shouldn't do it. It's really bad for your society, but you do it anyway.
And we lose. And then we lose. That's one of the worst. I mean, all of it is horrible.
Well, Northrop Grumman wins. Boeing wins.
Yeah, but that's 0.0001%
Lockheed wins.
0.01% of the society that
that's true.
benefits off of this nonsense.
True.
And we keep doing it. And then
it would be cheaper to say, hey, all you stockholders for these defense contractors, the whole military does, we'll just put you guys on like a UBI. You all make $100,000 a year. Sit at home on your sofas and don't blow anything up anywhere. And don't overthrow any governments. It would be a lot cheaper.
You're going to love this clip. You're going to love this clip. So I'm not even going to preface it. I'm just going to show it to you. I watched this and I thought to myself, how are they taking this position after the Joe Biden administration and Netanyahu and the way that they function?
That the United States is recognized as having such an important role in the peace process, and yet half the parties from the Northern Ireland government have decided not to come to St. Patrick's Day celebrations.
They haven't what?
They haven't come over. They're boycotting the St. Patrick's Day celebration.
What are they boycotting?
They are talking about your position on Gaza as one of the reasons.
No, I haven't heard that. I really haven't heard that. Look.
I hope you heard that. The reporter said, "Sir, the Democrats are boycotting you or your position because of your position on Palestine." That's like, and I heard that, I was like, what? How are they doing that? Their positions are the same. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is the difference in the position? Joe Biden wanted to expel the Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza. He went to Turkey. I'm sorry. He went to Jordan and he went to Egypt. Both told him to kick rocks, in which case he wasn't able to do it. No, he didn't make a big spectacle out of it in the way that Donald Trump did, but he was clearly trying to do it. All the reporting was pointing out. They told him no. Trump's like, I'm going to move the Palestinians. And people were like, oh my God, I can't believe he's going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I got into an argument with my ex, who's not even American, by the way, and is like, but where did Joe Biden say that? Where did Joe Biden say that? It's like, are you kidding me? It was in all the media. You just want... Dude, that fight had to be one of the, and I've done this for years, that fight with her was one of the most frustrating conversations in the world. Because she was one of these people, just like in the very beginning, was like, but the Palestinians don't want peace. This was her 6 months ago. And now she's fighting me on, yeah, but you haven't been covering the Gaza issue. Dude, I cover it like 3 times a week. What are you talking about? Oh, but Trump is trying to remove the Palestinians. So is Joe Biden. Where did you hear that? You are a Johnny-come-lately to this conversation, and you're really taking a piss out of me on this issue about Trump when both had the same position. I feel that way now. So Democrats have decided we're now angry at Trump because of his position on Gaza. How is his position any different, short of him just being more loud about it? Give me a take on this. This was so frustrating of a conversation.
There ain't no difference. No, there's no daylight whatsoever. I got to tell you, I mean, it's when you try to read tea leaves, which is all you can really do at the state, with these parties. I actually don't think Donald Trump his position is quite as radical as Biden's. I mean, Biden stood by and supplied intel, coverage at the UN, and weapons to the Israelis while they were bombing the shit out of Gaza. Yes. Now, Trump is pushing for a ceasefire now, and made clear before the election to the Israelis he wanted them to wrap it up before he gets in. He doesn't want that to be those optics to be going on when he's president. Now, it doesn't mean he's a nice person, but I mean, the impression I get is that he floated the ethnic cleansing thing to the Jordanians and the Egyptians, sort of like, hey, let's see, maybe we can pull that off. And then as soon as it got shot down, he's like, okay, never mind. I think he knows that's not going to happen. I think he's talking just, and I'm saying this just when you look at everything he does in Ukraine and all these other conflict zones, he's obviously telling the Israelis, like, you guys got to come up with something. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize that Obama had. He wants one for himself. He wants, a Camp David 2.0. He wants to be the hero. He wants to solve the Middle Eastern crisis. So I think, I don't see any daylight between the Democrats. And, the arrest of, my neighbor, Mahmoud Khalil, is
your neighbor?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Yeah, he's like, he lives a mile away from me. So it's like he's so that guy. I went to Columbia. I'm very familiar with the building that he lives in, and so he's that guy. The reaction among Democrats is piss poor. I mean, Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul, both Democrats, don't have shit to say about this. He's a New Yorker. He's got a green card. He was dragged away from his 8-month pregnant wife, kicking and screaming on broad daylight on the streets of New York City by goons, from ICE. This is a sanctuary city, by the way. So
I'm sorry, not anymore. Mayor Adams is in the pocket of Trump.
right, I'm
In
aware.
the pocket.
I'm aware. But the optics are repugnant. And even Bernie Sanders has not issued a statement about Mahmoud Khalil yet. He's like, and he was asked about it, and he said, "Oh, we're working on it." Oh, what are you waiting for? The dude is in a lockup in Louisiana, eating bologna sandwiches. Like, maybe now's the time to like say something. So it's like the Democrats do not care. I mean, this is. I think it's honestly, I don't suffer from TDS, but that right there, that's a fascist thing they did.
It's
That
outrageous.
is a fascist thing.
And this is Rubio talking about it. Just to be very clear, he has a visa to be in the United States. He is
He
legally
has a green card.
Oh, he has a green card.
He's a
He is
permanent
legal-
resident. A green card is basically a U.S. citizen who can't vote. I
All
mean,
right, now,
you've been
they are
completely
saying-
vetted. You're allowed to stay. Even if you commit a felony, you're allowed to stay. You
Now
know?
they're saying something different. I'm just telling you, they're saying something different. Meaning they're making up a different take in order to
Yeah, they're going
It's
by
okay.
this obscure code from the McCarthy era, from 1952. Yeah.
and here's Rubio effectively saying, well, hey man, you don't have a right to be here. This is Rubio talking about the case.
When you come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa, which is how this individual entered this country on a visitor's visa. Okay? You are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, "Hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity."
I need to intervene in this. Rubio is making this shit up, by the way.
Well,
In case
yeah.
you were
Well,
bewildered.
also, yeah, we're not talking about that. He may have entered on he probably did enter on the student visa. I'm sure he did. But then he married an American woman and
Right there.
qualified for a green card. So that's not relevant. That's not the issue here. Marco's just lying.
Exactly. He's making this shit up as he goes along.
Yeah.
The rapes didn't happen.
Oh, right. There's that
rape in
too.
teenage girls. He's
Not to
making this shit
mention,
up.
There's no indication that he supports Hamas. And anyway, you're allowed to be like, "I think Hamas is delicious. I love Hamas. I've got Hamas posters everywhere. I have a Hamas t-shirt, Hamas tattoos. I'm all about Hamas, Hamas,
Even
Hamas.
if all of
And
that
you're
is
allowed, that's
true.
the First Amendment protects that.
Yeah. Even if that is true,
And it's not
which
even
I
true.
don't know is.
I don't think there's no evidence that it's true. But even if it is, who cares?
Supporting the Palestinian cause is supported under the First Amendment. It is
Totally.
as American as apple pie to disagree with the take that your government is effectively going with.
Right.
And they are here. Two things. One, Trump has not deported as many people as Joe Biden,
No.
or at the very least, not on pace to. So
Or
there's that.
Obama.
Or Obama. I don't know who's going to beat Obama, right? This is theatrics in order to cover the fact that his deportations are not what he said his deportations are.
Mhm.
That's what I think. I think this is just drama and optics. where
Oh, for
people can
sure. It's
focus on the
that's
shiny
part of
object.
it. That's a big part
Yeah.
of it. Mhm.
I agree. That's part of it. The other part of it is all of these people are in Israel's pocket. That's the other.
Totally. No, it's disgusting. And as I've been telling my pro-Israel friends, I have quite a few of them. It's like, be careful. Like any power that's abused on your behalf can be abused against you. Like, the next president might be Ted Rall, might be like militantly pro-Palestinian. I'd sever diplomatic relations with Israel. Maybe I'd decide like, oh, pro-Israeli students, they should all be arrested and deported. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but let's just say that could happen. And Jews of all people should know what happens when governments get happy about deportations and snatching people off the street without like due process. They've been victims of this more than anyone. They should know better.
It's outrageous. It's just outrageous. I agree with you. Last story. I don't quite know what to think of this. So this is, what is it? Secretary Letnick. Listen to what he says here about taxes and about taxes on people under $150,000 a year. Now, Trump has said he wants no tax on tips. I don't know if he's going to get that. I actually am okay with that policy. This is something that's going to go directly to
Although
the
it's
Lord.
a little strange because here in New York City, there are waiters who make $300,000 a year.
And that was the part I was telling my mom, because they're like, "Oh, it's only 500,000." No, it will cost trillions of dollars to implement something like this. Because what you're talking about, let's say, for example, a waiter gets $2.50 an hour, which some do. Payment. But let's say they make 60,000 a year when you include taxes and everything else associated with it. The bulk of the money that they get are tips.
Yep.
What you're taxing is $250, and the $250 an hour may not even be enough to register for income tax.
Right.
So they get all of the money that they take, and
For
you
free.
replicate that over and over and over.
I don't
and
really
over.
have a problem with it, but still, it is a lot of money.
Tell me your problem with it. Tell me your
I
problem.
don't have a problem with it. I don't.
John.
No, I'm like,
Me neither.
I mean, people look. I mean, I've worked tip jobs. I drove a taxi for 8 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I never paid taxes. It was all cash. Nobody knew.
This would be Uber.
No, this
would
was
be
like
restaurant.
I was a yellow cab. Yeah, but it will right.
This would be us.
Yeah.
Because the money that people give for for memberships and all that stuff, those things.
Right. Yeah. People Venmo you money, donations,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And the
PayPal.
government is effectively saying, we don't want your money.
Right.
That is trillions of dollars.
It's a lot of
Now,
money.
again, I'm okay with this because it's a tax
These
cut.
are hardworking people. It's like fine.
Hardworking people. This is not the top 1%, unless there's a quirk in the way that they say it, where Jeff Bezos all of a sudden.
I don't believe that the base pay for waiters should be below the minimum wage. I think that's insane. I mean, it should be at least $15, $20 an hour.
All right. So Letnick comes out and says, we don't want taxes on anybody making under $150,000 a year. Trump wants to eliminate all taxes effectively for the poor and the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
This is him saying this on CBS. I hope this doesn't get demonetized.
Who cares? I tell you what, who cares? Donald Trump cares. And when we balance the budget, you know what that means? That means our deficits stop. Interest rates come smashing down. His goal is to have external revenue. The way I think about it, we all are so used to paying taxes. We're so used to it. We have like Stockholm syndrome. Don't stop the Internal Revenue Service, God forbid. How about this? The rest of the world leans on our economy, breathes off our economy. Not only is our economy $29 trillion GDP, but we consume $20 trillion a year. We are the buyer of everybody's stuff. We buy everybody's stuff. So who's more important? The people who sell stuff or the people who buy stuff? So we are the buyer of everybody's commodities, products, goods and services. Everything comes from us, right? Let them pay a membership fee. We all understand that model. Let them pay. How about we, you and I, and every single person we know pay less? How about no tax on tips? How about no tax on overtime? How about no Social Security? How about all those things? These are the kind of thoughts that will change America. I know what his goal is. No tax for anybody who makes less than $150,000.
First, wow. That's assuming he means it.
Well, there's legal cannabis in D.C., right? So he might be availing himself of that. Oh my God. I mean, there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like there.
There's a lot to like. He is like, I listened to that. I thought, okay, for one, you're not going to balance the budget.
No,
we can't balance the budget. We're a reserve.
Not to mention, let's just say you did balance the budget. You go back to the 90s when Clinton did.
Right.
Okay, but like you said, we can't. But then you still have the deficit, right? So you'd have to dig out of the deficit. You'd have to be in the black by a lot, for a long time. So you still are paying interest on the debt forever, right? You're not making a dent in that.
Yeah, $36 trillion.
Yeah,
and I think Joe Biden was spending like $2 trillion a year. When Trump came in last time, he increased it by $9 trillion. And so,
although in fairness, they did seriously. The COVID lockdown did require a massive spike in government spending.
Agreed, and I accept that. But I do know that when Donald Trump came in, the amount of the, what do they call it? The price cliff. They said, we're not going to add 1 cent to our grandchild. And they were saying this because Obama wanted to increase the debt limit and they didn't want to do it. When Trump came in, they increased the debt limit by $9 trillion. I agree with you. They had to put a ton of money in for COVID, but COVID hadn't hit yet when they increased the price limit to $9 trillion.
That's because of the tax cuts for the rich. Yeah.
Exactly. They figured Trump won. Trump's going to pass tax cuts. We need to expand the price point for the U.S. government. They had no issue doing it. And so now they're saying, hey, if we can balance the budget, we can get rid of taxes for everybody under $150,000. Now, let's say for the moment they did that. Does that destroy the Democratic Party? That's some shit you would hear coming out of New Deal Democrats, not out of the Republican Party. Or correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right. And yes, it would. I mean, look, we don't have to worry about it any more than, we have to worry about a giant squid eating New York. But
he's not doing it.
But yeah, it's not going to happen. But yes, it would completely. Even the fact that they're talking about it, it's this economic populism. That's it's the weak point of the Democrats. They just can't get on board with they can't even say we want to put more money in the pockets of working people. They don't even say that. I mean, they can't even be bothered to say it. At least the Republicans have that rhetoric. I'm not sure they mean it, but it's it is super interesting to hear him say that. I did think, it's interesting because a lot of people are, in the pundit class, among the liberal pundit class, are upset about this idea that the post-war order where the United States pays, hey, I'll pick up the tab for everything, right? For, Marshall Plan, that's on us. Don't worry about it. Like all the funding NATO, got this one. And like we pay for everything all the time. And then like, who's paying for us, right? And it's like, that's kind of, Trump's calling that out. They're saying, well, this is like, that's the order that's kept things going. Okay, so first of all, an order that's kept things going since 1945, when it's 2025, maybe you could look at it and say, like, this order may no longer be relevant, right? So it was a different order before 1939, right? So it's like there's that, and I do think there's a lot of sympathy for that when Americans travel and they say like, well, all these countries that we're financing, we're subsidizing their defense. Yep. They have high-speed rail, free college. They take care of their elderly. They have free healthcare. Like, how come? And I live in a shithole. Like, what's going on? Yeah,
really good point, Ted. Always appreciate you, man. I really do. Ted Rall, political cartoonist, syndicated columnist, host of TMI, Too Much Information with the beautiful Manila Chan, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Ted, thank you, man.
Anytime. Always a pleasure.
Have a good one,
have a good rest of the show.
You too. Thank you.